Kudus plays on the left. That's where Marcus Rashford is. That's the exact same position Jadon Sancho came in. Recently, there was a report that said the reason why he had to go into the market late in the day to buy Anthony was because after a conversation with Sancho, Sancho says Manchester United bought him knowing very well that his position is occupied by Marcus Rashford. And that's how come he needed to go out of his way to buy Anthony. Going to buy Kudus, even though Kudus, profile wise, is a much better player than Anthony. Positioning wise, you are just going to buy another Jadon Sancho who prefers the left wing or who is better on the left wing and not on the right wing, and you'll be playing the same dancing game around again. A few days ago, Manchester United, or at least the club hasn't released a full statement, but there's been massive reports from Sky Sports, David Ornstein, Fabrizio Romano, all the big name players you can see in the sports media, that Ten Hag has been confirmed to stay at Manchester United. I don't know whether the pain went more to ESPN studios or or to opposition clubs, but you are excited that he's staying at Manchester United. And I think I've asked your opinion on this for some time back, and you mentioned that you love him to stay as well. The owners probably took a little bit longer than people expected, but to be fair, it's just been 2 weeks. It's not been that long after the FA Cup final, but yeah, after the FA Cup final performance, the decision probably became tougher as to whether or not you want to stick with Ten Hag or you'd want to let go of him. Now the decision has been made to stick with him. Manchester United fans are seem to be happy, or at least purported to be happy with the decision because they want to keep Ten Hag, or at least majority of them want to keep Ten Hag. A lot of the media are still skeptical about the situation, but we'll get into a little bit of detail within this brief episode where we discuss about him and Manchester United's decision. So Erasmus, Ten Hag stays at Manchester United, which probably means Sancho leaves Manchester United. But generally, what do you make of this? Do you think this is the best decision Manchester United could come to given the circumstance? Or do you think they should have still made a bold call to just do away with him and then go for a new manager?
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you very much, and also thank you to General Staff and all the brilliant people at Manchester United who decided this brilliant, exquisite decision. If the opportunity would have allowed me, I would have done a giddy up and hoop. I'm very excited as a Chelsea fan for this decision to continue.
uh, you people are just anti-United at this studio.
No,
Eh?
for what's
But
wrong? He performed, he did well. If he's staying, for me, I think it's a step in the right direction. It's a big step in the right direction.
right now, I don't even know whether you're being sarcastic or you're being serious. Because you, at this point, the Chelsea fan in you is speaking more than the Shaft person who is speaking. So I'm not sure where you stand.
No, let's be honest. Let's look at his records. Two trophies won in 2 seasons. For me, that's someone so I don't think this decision has come out of luck. I think he
Yeah,
has merited. I think he has done enough to at least
yeah,
be considered to stay. Like we all saw what happened in Olegan Associates last season. It was horrible. So those kind of performances, like if this season he didn't win the trophy or he had lost disgracefully in the final, you could be making such a case. But winning two trophies on a bounce with a squad that's disjointed, of I think it makes sense to keep him because it means that there is something. And also, I think Manchester
yeah,
United will benefit a lot from the continuity because a lot of some of these young players who are not performing for them come from are people that he has given a chance to. And I've said in
yeah,
previous versions of this podcast that he's a kind of player, he's a kind of manager who does very well with young talent, but will struggle a lot with experienced players. And it's being seen within the team, the experienced players not showing up at all. But
yeah,
I think regardless, United as a whole is not there yet. And I think their continuous
Yeah,
expectation, it was funny that they were calling for the sacking of Ten Hag when it was quite clear that their team itself was not ready. They
yeah,
had a lot of injuries, a lot of changes, which means they'll need time to gel. So for me, getting rid of the manager, it was two things. They could have gone worse, or they could have got a better manager. But just for the
yeah.
possibility of having a better manager, looking at the markets now, especially because the managers they were mentioning, like Tuchel, um, uh, De Zerbi, I thought
Pochettino, yeah,
would massively
McKenna.
improve the team. No, not McKenna. I would have supported. I call him McKenna Kekomi.
Eh, Mali, continue. Hey,
so,
for those who don't
so
understand, McKenna Komi, he's using a pun to describe a Ghana delicacy, yes, which is quite ironic because I don't know whether he's saying that the coach is as terrible as the food or as great as the food, which would depend on his personal preference with that food as well. So yeah,
so I think that they could have made a massive upgrade in that area. So
yeah,
this buys him time. I think he's going to do well. I don't think they will be great instantly, and the quicker they realize
yeah,
that, the better for them. I think um, when the Chelsea project took off, people were trying to compare both clubs, and I was saying that the Chelsea project is just starting, but United is now falling. Like so, even though we are at the same place, dropping and one
yeah.
is going,
One is drawn, yeah, one is dropping and one is going up. True.
we just happen to be passing by ourselves for a brief moment. So they shouldn't get comfortable with seeing us around. But obviously, they
Yeah,
had this change of projects with a new setup, which is
Ineos.
Cap, which I think can improve recruitment and can
Yeah,
improve the conditions in there. So I'm happy for him. And if they can sign in more young talent, good. But if Tenor continues to sign players, I'm sure we'll see 10 more Anthony's. So those are the things that keeps making me excited because he talks big in trying to, because he's a very good coach. So
yeah,
his perception of where his standard is there.
yeah.
But
It's
Man
high.
United,
Yeah,
and the more it
yeah,
stays, I think tension can build because you feel like
yeah,
I'm good enough. This team is not showing it, and get frustrated. So I think it's a make or break season for him. But them
yeah,
committing to extend his contract or letting him stay might mean that they have to let him run down his contract or extend it, which in this instance will mean
yeah,
that if the season goes really, really bad, it might complicate the rebuild they are attempting.
yeah. I mean, the reports that came about his this is his confirmation to stay also came with additional reports that says Manchester United and Ten Hag are in negotiations to extend his contract, which
Mm.
should be done like as soon as possible.
Oh,
And for
good,
me,
good.
it then made sense as to why it took that long to decide to stick
Mm.
with him. Because it was
Yeah,
now about when we are sticking with him, it's not just to run down his contract. If we really
yeah,
want the media to get off his backs and for the team to stay within a sane position where they can focus on their work without week in, week out, anytime he loses a game, would they renew his contract? Would they sack him? What is this? And all that. Then it meant that they needed to not just confirm that he's staying, they needed to go a step further to prove that they are backing him for the long haul, because also that has strong implications in the dressing room about whether or not the players are sure that they need to respect this manager because the club is sticking with him for the next 3 years or for the next 4 years, right? And so, and
mm,
obviously, you know how this thing appears psychologically when when Ragnick came and and he was there for a few months. Ronaldo said, I don't even know whether that guy was a coach. They went to bring him from somewhere to come and tell us what to do. And clearly, the players didn't respect him because they didn't know his profile, but also they obviously knew he wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't going to be there at the end of the season. He was just some caretaker manager for the interim.
yeah.
So they didn't respect him or his principles, right? And I think that's what they wanted to avoid with the Ten Hag situation, which is very, very important. Because at best, what they would have done without an extension, or at least a discussion of an extension, would have been they confirm him staying, and then 2 months into the new season, the same old conversation starts again in the media, and the media is still saturated with all sorts of reports, which I think is very, very good. So that then made sense as to why they hesitated in being so quick in confirming that they'll stick with him, because it wasn't just, yeah, we are sticking with you to run down your contract. It was, we need to give you an extension if we are sticking with you, which was really, really cool. But I think people said it was a much more holistic evaluation of his 2 years at United, which I think, to be very honest, either United supporters are blind or they've been living in some utopia that they can
Mm-hmm.
never truly exist in the next 4 years. It's like absolutely ridiculous to think that with what he's gone through and with what the team has been through, this team is expected to outperform every single time. That finishing third and securing Champions League football and winning the Carabao Cup was an exaggerated performance of that Manchester United team in that season.
Yeah, yeah.
Them finishing eighth is exactly where they should have started from that season. They've now come back to reality. So they shouldn't be thinking that they dropped in performance. No, he overperformed in his first season. And in his second season, he probably could have overperformed again. But like you say, over 60 different cases of injuries and illnesses. He had more than 30 centre back pairings. He never got his goalkeeper settled in. Rasmus Højlund came in with a back injury. He only had to get going sometime down the season. You can look at several circumstances for which reason Ten Hag ended up in this situation. He's come into a team and we've forgotten he's the same person who had to deal with Ronaldo's situation. He's the same person who had to deal with Sancho, sending him off into the woods to go and clear his head, coming back, and then Sancho still misbehaving and annihilating him from the team. He's the same person who had to come in the mix of Greenwood and deal with it. He's the same person who had to deal with Anthony's sexual harassment accusations at the start of last season, which meant the player never had his head in the right place to begin with. I'm not sure whether his head was in the right place, he would have even performed, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But that's the thing. You look at the things that Ten Hag has had to deal with, even the managers from big clubs who are struggling. I don't think if Pochettino found himself in this situation, let's even take Potter, right? Because you probably say Potter and Ten Hag were probably on similar pedigrees at the time they were brought into these big clubs. I don't think if Potter walked into Chelsea and had to deal with Ronaldo and had to deal with sexual harassment cases around Greenwood, had to deal with all the dressing room stuff. Recently, this season has been Marcus Rashford going out to drink, going out to party. I don't think that coach would even have the peace of mind to be sitting down and thinking about tactics to display over the weekend.
But
Because a
some
lot
some
of,
people, that's what
yeah,
comes with being a United manager, because like he's not the first coach to have to deal with these kind of situations, and these are things which I think every club goes through. But with Man United, the media focus, like if you're not playing very well in your traditional club, you're going to get some of these reports. So for me,
see,
like on the field, I'm coming on the
yeah,
field. Let's just judge him on the field, regardless of all the different situations he's gone through. Has he played the
yeah,
best football? Sometimes. So I think there is cause to be worried there. So I understand that because of his injuries, he's not played his kind of football. But what really
yeah.
is this kind of football? I don't think anyone has ever witnessed it in United the past 2 years,
Let me
and
ask
that's
you a
what makes
question. Do you really think that with the set of players that he has at United, you can ever witness this kind of football?
he had a chance to go into the transfer market and get his set of players, and he decided to get Anthony.
Look, to be very honest, we talk about Ten Hag signings as being poor, but I also don't think that we've been very objective with analyzing his signings. Ten Hag's signings have only not been Anthony. Sure, Unana had a very difficult start, but at some point in the season, he grew up into the team and he was probably one of their best players towards the end of the season. You look at Lisandro Martinez, and his injury record has not been great, but prior to joining Manchester United, Lisandro Martinez had just had one injury and he's just sat out of one game. And so you'd probably say is not a decision that data could have predicted, or it's not a situation that data could have predicted. But Lisandro Martinez is obviously one of the best centre backs in the Premier League. Look at Rasmus Højlund and bringing him into the team. Again, when he found his form within the team, he's been one of the most promising centre forwards in the Premier League as a young talent. We saw Evan Ferguson start up at Brighton last season. He was nowhere to be found, right? So I don't think Ten Hag signings have only been down to Anthony, and you can agree or disagree. Arteta has had very horrible signings at the start of his Arsenal career. Even Pep Guardiola has had very horrible signings. The almighty Jurgen Klopp had very horrible signings at the start of his career. I think Anthony's own is just worst case scenario of any £100 million player that you can find. But if you look at the number of players he's signed, for instance, Mason Mount has not really had any chance to play because he's been injury after injury after injury. But if you look at the players Ten Hag has signed, on a percentage basis, I don't think majority of his players have been terrible. And I also
Okay.
don't think he's even have enough transfer windows to change the players he wants. He said sell Maguire. Maguire is still there. He wanted to sell Scott McTominay. McTominay is still there. These are the players he wanted to sell. Eventually, he had to rely on them, not because he would want that situation, because that's what's available to him,
Those
right?
were the same players who were bailing him out because, and that's why I disagree with the narrative because he has been terrible with his signings. Like none of his signings have really settled into the team and played out for everyone to say, "Oh no, that's good." Maybe apart from Hoyland, who had a couple of goals
Martinez.
and really was out. But Martinez has never really played consistently for United.
What the
So
season that they finished fourth, they finished third, and were in the Champions League and won the cup. Martinez Varane partnership were one of the most solid defensive partnerships
I
in the
was
Premier
also
League.
one of the most injured like players ever. So I mean, of course, if you give someone 500 million and he throws it around, he's going to buy one or two good players. That's
No, no,
not
no,
there.
no, 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 no. Why don't you flip that
Because
statement and say then he's going to buy one or two bad players? You flip the statement when you say he's going to buy one or two good
exactly.
players as well.
So it's about the balance in proportionality, right? But when you have Anthony and Mohamed Kudus and you are the coach who coached both of them, and you think that Anthony is the better player to spend 100 million on, kudos. When you have Mason Mount, who
Yeah,
has fallen out of form, who has been injured for a very, very long time, and you bring him into your team without even a clear idea of the role that he was necessarily there to play, whether he was playing more for. I think the impression now was that he would drop as an eight. Mason Mount, we always say is an eight, never has played there as an eight. Came there, still carried the injury record. Meanwhile, you need these players to come and continue your style and you made this kind of decision. Casemiro in his first season. Now you have a player who by his second season he has no legs at all, has zero legs. So I think when you have a small budget, the expectation on you is high. And Maguire and Scott McTominay, whom we wanted to kick out at the start of the season, are those who now stepped up and were playing that kind of football, which the academy
look,
players used in the beginning were now or was being criticized. For example, Ahmad, he froze him out of the team for a very, very long time. Later on, these were
but
the
Ahmad
guys who
was
were
injured.
no, but when Ahmad was eligible to play, especially when his first season he was injured, when he came back this season, he wasn't given a lot of chances. This guy, Omari Forson, was the one who was given a chance to play a couple of times. Only came around this season. So
No, I
I
think you are
don't think
missing the timelines here. Ahmad came back into the season, into the team this past season, and he was injured
yes.
at the start of the season. And that's how come Omari Forson had the chance. When Ahmad came back from injury, it was more about knowing the best time to introduce him into the team. And to be very honest, I think if he had rushed Ahmad like he was rushing all the other players immediately they come back from injury, and the injury research would all be the same people saying Ten Hag is rushing players and he's getting the worst injury records. With Lisandro Martinez, the same. With Luke Shaw, it's same. With Mason Mount, it's been same. So taking caution on Ahmad, I think, even if it meant freezing him out of the team for longer periods, was much better for his fitness as well. So
I I disagree that this manager has consistently played people even when they are injured for the injury to reoccur. And then in Ahmad's scenarios, because he was certainly a genius at being able to prevent reoccurrence. I don't think it was that.
But to be very honest, I think people who criticize Ten Hag again are a lot of the time disingenuous about exactly what metrics you should evaluate him with. And you probably say, yeah, I don't like Manchester United. I'm a Ten Hag fan though because of like his principles, his identity, and what I saw at Ajax. And even with the Mohamed Kudus situation, Kudus is not a right winger. Kudus plays on the left. That's where Marcus Rashford is. That's the exact same position Jadon Sancho came in. Recently, there was a report that said the reason why he had to go into the market late in the day to buy Anthony was because after a conversation with Sancho, Sancho says Manchester United bought him knowing very well that his position is occupied by Marcus Rashford. And that's how come he needed to go out of his way to buy Anthony. Going to buy Kudus, even though Kudus, profile wise, is a much better player than Anthony. Positioning wise, you are just going to buy another Jadon Sancho who prefers the left wing or who is better on the left wing and not on the right wing, and you'll be playing the same dancing game around again. So, I mean, also, we shouldn't isolate these situations as only a situation that boils down to the manager. If Ten Hag requests for Anthony and says he wants a right winger, and the scouting department think he's not a right winger, they would obviously point it out. If the owners don't want to spend that money and they are the ones who write the ultimate check, that check systems exist. I do not think that the blame on Ten Hag buying Anthony versus Kudus is actually the apples versus oranges thing that we really make it to seem.
I can understand that in every general case, like these sporting directors make a decision. So I can understand that the decision was limited. But at the end of the day, if you a coach don't want the player, no one is going to say like if you don't want the player, no one is going to sign him. Plus, recognize that in Ten Hag's situation, he was coming from a team that like was doing pretty well. Ajax was playing well,
Yeah,
and coming into this side, the expectation was that he can replicate that form and get the team playing quickly. So they asked themselves, what were the quick fixes? Because look at all the signings. It was that he
yeah,
has all the tools to do the job except the right wing, except
yeah,
the DM, except a solid centre back who will pair with Varane because Maguire had been shit the couple of seasons. So it just tells you that he was given a lot of say, and there's been many reports that he had a lot of say in who exactly should be signed. Did he negotiate? So if you say he didn't uh, maybe come up with the money or the prices or whatever, that's fine because the others negotiated it.
yeah.
But given that these players were coming from teams he had, these were players he had mostly worked with before
But do you
or who
think
were regular.
Anthony and Kudus
Listener
are playing the
listeners.
same position?
No, no, yeah, I wanted to talk about that Kudus one. Kudus
Yeah,
plays on the right, uh, West Ham, even especially for large parts of the season where Bowen was playing through the middle. It was only when Bowen went to Gerard Bowen went to the right wing. That's when he moved to the left, and even then, he's much better on the right wing. Everyone would say. Even then, we've seen him drift to the middle to play as a 10. And for me, as a coach, especially because we've seen Rashford play on the right and the left, and even through the middle, as a coach, maybe I would have opted more for that level of versatility that comes with Kudu. So I don't think, plus Sancho, where is Sancho playing now in Dortmund?
but Sancho doesn't want to play the right wing at United. That's the problem.
Where is he playing? Where is he playing now in Dortmund?
I don't want to comment. You can pick
Uh,
your
I
no,
don't think
because the problem is I don't think anybody would blame Ten Hag for not wanting to buy another Sancho situation. And you'd say, sure, Rashford plays on the right as well. Rashford doesn't like it. And as at the time Ten Hag was buying Anthony versus Kudus, Kudus at Ajax was never deployed as an out and out right
he
winger
was.
because of
He was.
Anthony. Anthony was the first choice right winger because he Ten Hag was the team coach at the time. He was obviously prioritizing Anthony over Kudus. Kudus was
Tells you
anytime he was playing. Kudus anytime was playing was either on the left, playing through the center as a 10, sometimes dropping as an 8, or even a false 9 sometimes.
I'll tell you the truth. Kudus, I'm not even sure Kudus really likes Ten Hag because there was an interview he did with Gary Al Smith ab-
Yeah.
around his time, and it shows that the coach was consistently playing him out of position. Like Kudus started as a 6 for Ajax.
Yeah.
Kudus was never given the chance. Immediately, Anthony left. Kudus moved to the right wing. That was the season he had his best output terms of goals. There were times where he used him as a false nine and everything, but there was most of the time he was playing him out of position, which also
I
makes
agree
me
with
question
you.
his player
I,
profile because he plays Ganacho left and like for me, the point I want to make, I'm not one of who think Ten Hag is the worst thing after
Ole.
Big bread, but I think there is merit to those who wanted him out. I think there's merit to the case that they had.
Yeah.
He brought this upon himself to a
I
certain
mean,
degree.
I
He did.
I vehemently disagree whether there's merit to anyone. Anyone who wanted him out is living in the United utopia that they need to snap out of. Because that 8th they finished last season was where they should have started from. The places that Arteta and Arsenal went through before they came to start competing for titles, that's where United should expect to go through. So they shouldn't jump the gun and start thinking that they are united. So for them, the process doesn't apply to them. It applies to every single person, every single team, and they would go through it. The pain now coming to hate carrying thing, especially now that they've renewed the contract, they will see next season injuries will start again, and then they will start complaining because currently they need to do a lot in the market to actually have some confidence. They need a center back because Varane is off. They need a striker, a backup striker because Marshall is off now. They need to decide whether they are moving on Casemiro to bring in a new six. If not, they need to bring someone who can deputize him, right? And Scott McTominay currently has clearly showed he's not the player to be sitting in deep to be playing a six. You need him up front to be giving you those goals as well. I mean, there's a lot to be decided, but I think that for Ten Hag, we can criticize some of his signings not going great, but in my opinion, I think the decision making behind those signings actually make a lot of sense, right?
Mm,
And if
only
you are a manager, no, if you are a manager, for instance, Erasmus, if you're a manager and you've played a player consistently in a position where your team has excelled in, Anthony in right wing, sure, you've not had the chance, you've not given Kudus the chance, and you've not played him because you've not had to, because Anthony was living up to expectations or was complementing the style of play or the way in which he wanted to deploy his team. Obviously, if you've moved to a new team and you're asked for a right winger between the player you've not had to give a chance and cannot vouch for his play on the right wing and the player that you've consistently played on the right wing for your team to succeed and for your team to get the very levels that based on which you get that call up into a higher team, it would be at that point, it would be very, very ridiculous if he chose Kudus. Kudus didn't come to work out at United. People would bite deeper into Ten Hag than they are biting him for Anthony. And a lot of people should realize that Kudus going to United was not a guaranteed success. We've seen much more talented players at higher peaks go to United and not play well, Sancho being one of them. And the time Kudus was being called, the time Anthony was signed, Kudus hadn't had his best season at Ajax yet. And so that would have been even a lower grade of performance, much lower confidence going into that United team, underperforming. That would have been the worst Ten Hag signing ever for people to talk about.
I
So
guess we'll never know.
yeah, we'll never know, but people should not like do it like yeah, he should have gone to pick Kudus as if the option was there and he just didn't do it because the information available at the time, Ten Hag made the right choice. People should just shut up and endure
Me, I'm
their
happy
pain.
once you continue. Um,
Yeah. But I mean, this has been a fun discussion. I think Ten Hag would hopefully improve the team. And also looking at the profiles around United, like coming around and says like the new rules are that they would only be signing young players. Obviously, it seems like he is the right man for the job. But I think teams just need to get to a point where they say, look, to hell with every time changing managers. You need to start giving managers confidence so players would know they need to play to suit the strengths of a manager. So it's now the situation at United needs to become like the Fergie situation. It needs to become like the situation at City now. It needs to become like the situation at Liverpool when Klopp was there. That said, if you don't play to the strengths of the manager, we are keeping the manager and you are the player leaving. City sent off Joao Cancelo, one of the best left backs at the time, shipped him off as if he was nothing to the team. And he's still roaming around, not really knowing where his career is ending, just because he fell out with Pep Guardiola. Right. So look at those situations and I think when players know that the manager is a priority, they would kill themselves for the manager and you have higher chances of getting better output. on the pitch as well. So let's see what happens. For us, we'll be here. We'll be back definitely. If United lose their first game, we'll be back and we'll
I
lash
can tell
out
you
at
what.
Ten Hag.
I can tell you it's
Don't
sick.
tell me. I
Mark
was
it here.
about to say. I was about to say, don't tell me, but we already said. Obviously, we'd have an episode where we do like the predictions for the incoming season. But
Oh,
yeah,
there are
let's
four,
see.
six.
At least that's
And
improvement from
Ten Hag and
improvement from eight. I also have a feeling the reason why this is paining you is because him winning the FA Cup knocked Chelsea into Conference League. So obviously,
don't
you are much more pained.
I don't really care about that because, like, for me, once we go into Europe and we
Ah,
finish it, fine. I
yeah.
knew the Champions League is the elite competition. Like the day I'll be crying because of Europa League.
Okay, guys, it's been an amazing discussion. Let us know what you think about Ten Hag, the decision to retain him. Let us also know about the debates that we just had regarding his signings, whether you think they were the best, what do you call it, signing decisions at the time, and whether you think United fans actually live in a deluded world where they are expecting a fourth finish, a third finish, a second finish, when actually they needed to have started from 10th the season that Ten Hag signed on. See you on the next one and leave your comments in the comment section. Bye, guys.
Ten Hag, Ten Hag was